DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, and we are joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach. Steve, good morning. We've been playing the long game, and finally our plan is revealed. We have had you on the air every week for years, so that when your former player, Austin Ainge, came in as president of basketball operations, which sounds like a pretty powerful title to me, you would immediately come on just moments later to discuss it. Don't you love it when a plan comes together?
Yes, it does. It's so nice. I'm so excited for Austin. And this is one of something I had no idea. So did it just get
Yeah.
Literally, it's 10, 12 minutes ago.
It was released.
Told,
there was discussions, obviously, over the week that had been
Yeah.
going on, as I understand them. But and you recruited him, right? You were the guy who brought him in.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the Steve Cleveland influence, now on the Jazz, still on BYU. They just got done with the father and sons basketball camp, which is just grown into a spiritual experience for so many, and I don't mean that in mocking. And who started that camp, Steve?
Me.
BYU just named a new athletic director. Who moved him to Utah?
Oh, yes, that was me.
So, I found, and I was the beat writer for the newspaper at the time, as you know. That was where I first met you all those years ago.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, a few years later, Austin Ainge comes, and I got an opportunity to be around him. We had the Phoenix connection, and he's a basketball junkie. And I was saying this earlier that he's sitting in airports or wherever talking with him. It was clear he had a bright mind for the game, and obviously he had the connection with his father, but he was going to have employment in basketball. So I was always impressed with his ability to dissect the game, and I'm sure you could speak to that.
Yes, he was, and as a player, very cerebral. I mean, he just understood the game, how it was to be played, and and the thing about his impact on our program is that he had opportunities to play, but they weren't significant. But you get him in on a huddle at halftime or a timeout or whatever it was, and you hear conversations, and he would always have something to share. And it was always so supportive with players, even though he may not have been playing significant minutes. He was a young man that understood the game. He obviously grew up around it, lived it, especially with having a dad that played in the NBA and also coached. But that was if you asked any of our players, anybody that were around Austin at BYU, it was that he was like having a coach on the floor. He was like having another coach in the program, and he just knew the game. And so it was always good to have guys like that. But I think the greatest impact he had, even though it may not have been in significant minutes, was the things he shared with players. He made great friendships, still have friendships today. But I think everybody really respected Austin because he did have an understanding of the game. And whether he was coaching or in management or today as the president of basketball, with here in Utah with the Jazz, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's not something I haven't had a thought about him being in the Jazz organization in the last, I don't know, too long to even know. But when you just told me that, there was just a feeling I had. Oh man, this is a perfect fit, and it's got to be great for Danny and his wife, and just having a son back and children and grandchildren and all that wonderful things that brings in. I know how meaningful it was for me to come back here to Utah and have my children and grandchildren here. And I can't imagine Danny and his wife being any different. Forget about all the basketball stuff, but just having them so close must be a great thing for their family.
And with Danny Ainge in his mid-60s now, it also makes sense that whether it's a day, a week, a month, a year, a couple of years, whatever it turns out to be, whenever Danny wants to step further away, he can stay in the advisor role. And there's Austin. So, I mean, you can kind of see how this plays out over the years going forward now.
Yeah, you can. And you know what? The Jazz, this whole thing with the Jazz, somewhat of an enigma here, right? I'm not sure where they're going or what they're doing. We kind of felt like, we're going to get a lottery pick here, and I think everybody was hoping for something, better than a fifth pick. But there is a lot of still rebuilding to go on there. And I know they've in the last year or two, they've purposely, tried to put themselves in a position where they could get a Cooper Flag or whomever it might have been. And that kind of stuff Austin's really good at. And he was doing that with the Celtics, and he'll do it here with the Jazz. But there's some challenging things. So being here, there's some excitement about being here. He's certainly qualified and prepared. But the elephant in the room doesn't go away. We're not really quite sure how long it's going to take to kind of rebuild this. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with the draft, trades. I'm excited to see that and what happens, and maybe the Jazz can get better sooner than we think. But can't imagine anybody better, more prepared for this than Austin Ainge.
He's been on the ground level. It's amazing to me, Coach, that he turns 44 in September. It's like, no way.
We are getting old.
But,
I'm holding. I don't know what you're doing.
That's
I'm holding.
That's the situation. And he coached and I think in the G League for a bit or whatever it was called back then. And he's been an administrator in the NBA. And I know that he's interviewed for other, whether there be GM or whatever the basketball particular title was with each organization. I know this has been his goal for a good while. And where I'm going with this is that he's made relationships in the league that go well beyond his father. And I'm sure he knows a bunch of agents and all that type of stuff. And so I'm wondering, what do you think about agents have influence on players and their clients and all, and it could be that somebody might say to a player XYZ, hey, why don't you consider the Jazz? I can recall a story with Matt Harpering where he was a free agent, if I remember correctly, and his college coach, Kremens, the guy who was thinking white hair when he was like 25, told him, you need to get out there and go visit the Jazz because I know Jerry Sloan and I believe that you're Jerry Sloan's kind of player. Harpering told me this story a few years back that was a significant reason. So maybe Austin Ainge could have some influence because of his relationships that he's built up over the years that could help attract talent here.
No, I think that I can't think of anybody that would be more prepared to do what he's about to do and what he's been involved in from the moment, he's a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid growing up in a home where the father was playing professional baseball, professional basketball, to becoming an NBA All-Star, to all of a sudden in management and ownership and all the things he's done. And even though Austin has been, a long plane flight away, it's not like you don't continue to talk to your dad and talk to your family. And I'm sure they've had a multitude of conversations about this and the preparation for this and what those circumstances are. I can't imagine anybody being more prepared other than somebody that might have come in and already been doing that. But I think it makes sense. It seems like a great hire in this community. Austin was a loved player and person in our program. And I felt like, he could have been on the staff very easily. I mean, he'd been watching, and his father, who was obviously a very special talent, special person, competitive. He had all of those things that Austin had. Austin just wasn't his dad in terms of that talent level of playing the game. But when you kind of turn the page and see the kind of influence and impact that Austin's going to have, you have to look back at him watching his father and him as a player watching coaches he played for, and then, of course, being back in Boston for such a long time. I don't know that anybody can be more prepared for what he's about to do, and it's got to be fun for the entire family to have that kind of reunion, and it's a special thing. I know coming back here was pretty easy for us after living in California and coming back home from a mission and doing those things. And when, my kids started migrating up here, my wife looked at me and just goes, hey, you know what? We're not staying here. And we're going to be by our children. And that's been one of the greatest blessings for Kip and I is to have family around. And this just kind of the cherry on top to not only come back home, but to have that kind of significant role, a role that I really truly believe that Austin's prepared for. And kudos to Danny and that entire administration there for seeing a young talent, not that young anymore. You're right, he's in his 40s. But at the end of the day, I can't imagine anybody being better or more prepared for that than Austin.
The long game was to have you on for this moment, but also to have you on for the Paul George NBA Finals. Both Oklahoma City and Indiana traded Paul George for key pieces. They've rebuilt over 6 or 8 years. So as heartwarming as all this is, the Jazz are on the clock and they have to win. They missed the playoffs 3 years in a row, and they're going into year 4 on this rebuild. And we're looking at Pacer and Thunder teams that had to trade an all-star, ironically the same all-star, and they got to the finals in year 6 and 8. Now, if it takes 10, who cares? Just get there and win it all. If it takes a couple more years, great, because it's been decades and they haven't won it all. So let's get it done. Do you see hope right around the corner, or does it still feel like a long way out? Or we should ask you this question after the NBA draft. Give it another month, and then let's figure it out.
I think the draft will probably be something that we need to wait for and see what can happen, and it'll be fun to see what Austin does with Dad and and everybody, the ownership and everybody there. You brought up OKC, and I was reading some things this last couple of weeks, because I don't really know a great deal about OKC. I know where they are and how they've come about, but I was thinking about this NBA playoff starting, and the fact that OKC is 29-1 against Eastern Conference teams, and we know that they're talented and that they play outstanding defense. But I'm really excited about seeing Oklahoma City. That's not to say that Indiana can't go 7 games or 6 games, whatever. But my focus today would be on how dominant this team has been, and it's just been so much fun to watch a younger team that really gets after it defensively, and they have such parity, Holmgren, Williams, Hartenstein, Alexander, Dort, Caruso. They all have a role, and obviously SGA is the guy that kind of leads this whole group. But I am excited to watch this series, and I am definitely pulling for Oklahoma City. And it's not to say that Indiana doesn't have a fine team with Siakam and Nesmith and Turner and Nembhard and Halliburton. But this is OKC's moment, and it might be the next 2 or 3 years. And it'll be interesting, too, just to compare what the Jazz have gone through. Why can't the Jazz do what OKC, that formula? And obviously getting a special player in Alexander, and but he's 32 years old. You're talking Williams is 22. Excuse me, not 32. These are younger guys, and I think that we can look at this OKC team and say, hey, the Jazz can do this. They got kind of similar markets, don't they? I mean, when you start thinking about it, and these, we're not in L.A., we're not in San Francisco or Washington, D.C. or Miami. These are both two programs and two organizations that have a lot of things in common. And so hopefully we can see something here in Jazzland where we can build and through the draft, through trades, whatever. I can't wait for the Jazz to get out of this rebuilding mode. It's just been too long, and it's time to kind of step forward and let's make this team better.
Yeah, I don't see there's any way that the OKC doesn't win this, and I could be wrong, obviously, but for me, they would be a prohibitive favorite because it seems like right now they've got everything going for them. And that's to take nothing away from the Pacers. I just think that OKC, with the emergence, I mean, SGA has been a phenomenal player and well-deserving of the MVP as far as I'm concerned. But they have a lot of pieces. A kid like Caruso coming off the bench and providing them defensive energy. And you always need junkyard dogs, guys who do the little things to help you win, to help support the stars and let them be stars. It seems like they got 4 or 5 of those guys in addition to a star, and then a couple of stars on the way in Williams and Holmgren.
Well, you're right. I mean, Holmgren's averaging 15, 8-2. Williams, another guy out of Santa Clara that nobody really knew. He's scoring 22, 5 and 5 a night. Hartenstein, same thing, about 11, 12 points a game. The guy that I kind of think about a lot, though, is Caruso. And you know, I hate to admit this, but I have been a longtime Laker fan, and I'm not nearly as committed to him as I have been in the past growing up. But he was with a great organization. He was prepared for this. But Alex Caruso is a huge. I mean, he's going 7-3-3, but he seems to really have an impact on that team. His leadership, big baskets. He's in the games in crunch time when it's important, even though there may be other guys that are scoring more points or rebounding better. But I really like what Alex Caruso's done, and I think his experiences of growing up in organizations that have been really successful, he's provided another element to how OKC has really become dominant and playing so well. So, and it's always fun to see guys that and you watch play in college that weren't great college players, and Williams, you look at him and how he grew from Santa Clara. He had a brother doing the same thing, obviously. It's fun to see guys that have kind of worked their way through it and worked their way up. And OKC is, as we've watched, has just been so dominant. When you go 29-1 against conference foes, you're doing something right. And that starts with just outstanding defense.
Well, Steve, this has reinforced your image as the Godfather. So wear that moniker well. As a matter of fact, now we really even have theme music when we bring you on every week.
Exactly. Well, boys, you have a great day. I'm going to go hit them up.
All right, there it is. The Godfather. Steve Cleveland. He brought the BYU athletic director to town. He brought the new Jazz president of basketball operations to town. The guy's tied into the local sports and hoop scene.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, your influence. They talk about how teachers have an influence, and coaches often do too with the coaching tree. But it's interesting with Steve Cleveland that his tree, obviously Dave Rose, would be at the top of that list. But also now he's extended into management forms, administrative roles, significant administrative roles. I mean, Brian Santiago came with Steve Cleveland. That's just an absolute fact. They were both in Fresno. Brian's from here, but he was in Fresno at the time and basically demanding / begging that Steve Cleveland bring him, and he did. And then he, 3 decades later almost, ends up being the athletic director at BYU, ushering in a new time. We'll see what that new time entails over the coming years. We can't even we can speculate, but we don't know for sure. And then he recruits Austin Ainge to BYU, and he was right in saying that Austin Ainge was like another coach on the floor. He absorbed basketball in terms of trying to learn all the stuff that goes about creating a team, learning how to play the right way, make the right plays, who's a winner, who isn't. I mean, these are all discussions that I've had with Austin. I haven't had them in a good long while, but I did have them back then. So, and now here he is. And now we talked about this a little bit amongst ourselves. Does he take on more of a role? Is his father stepping away, maybe more in an advisory capacity? And that's information that they need to explain when they get together and have some form of press conference to announce it. But you can see that, and the Ainge influence through both of them will be significant upon this franchise going forward. I
can't imagine. I won't speak for you, but I don't think you can imagine either. I can't imagine a scenario where, the baton isn't going to be handed off. The question of the timing remains. I don't have any idea what that is. But I don't see how there's another scenario. The baton's going to get handed off here at some point. I would assume sooner, not later. What that means in terms of numbers of months or years, I don't know. I'm just be speculating. We're just sitting here hearing the news, immediate. But it could well be.
Yeah, I don't think you give someone the president
that title.
President of basketball operations to come in here and be an advisor. And I can tell you that's not what Austin was looking for. I don't think he takes the job unless he has significant influence because, as I had already said, he was in line. I believe it was Charlotte. He thought he had an excellent chance to get. He didn't get it, obviously, but he was right there to get that job, to run the franchise. That's the goal. And it's similar into what Brian Santiago was in terms of working under Tom Homo. And Brian, when they announced that Tom Homo was retirement, I had an opportunity to talk to him, and he said, "This is what I've been working for the last decade. I really want this job." And he said it to me with such conviction that, okay, now he's probably going to get the job. And I had already talked to other people that said he was most definitely the leading candidate. So he transitioned potentially from maybe being in the active player coaching realm to the management of putting the team together. Austin has done that same thing. So it is apparent that this is the role that he wants. He does not want to be on the sideline. He wants to be in the management, creating the team, and that's what he's been working toward for a number of years in a manner that Brian Santiago was working toward becoming the athletic director for a number of years.
Be sitting at the end of the table where all the decisions are made, not at the far end of the table where suggestions are made, or in the back row where you get to speak only if spoken to.
This was his desire. He made that transition several years ago and now is eyeballs deep in it. And I believe he's going to have significant authority. I mean, if I ever had significant authority, which I've never had in any situation ever, but if I ever had it, part of having significant authority is taking into consideration what people you trust say. And so you've done that. I've done that with my life as the youngest. I had essentially 3 mothers with 2 older sisters and a mother, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt that they had my best interest in heart. There was no other agenda there. They had nothing to gain except for seeing me succeed. And when they spoke to me and said, "Hey, what about this and this?" Okay, because I know. And now you're going to have that. He will obviously trust his father implicitly, and Jay-Z and the other people around the organization. And to me, I would rather have that than maybe a singular Jerry Jones type. We're going to do whatever I say.
Yeah, because that doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah. I don't really know what Jerry, if he does that anymore, but there's been talk of down in Phoenix with Ishbia thinking, I got this. Mm-hmm. No, you don't.
Right.
You haven't made good moves.
That's another example.
Team sucks.
Yeah, the owner's got all the power.
And you got nowhere to go.
Yeah, the owner's got all the power, and
it's not working.
It's not working.
And so here, now you have other folks, and if Austin is obviously the owner is final say, but on the basketball side, you take counsel and then you reach some form of consensus. I would feel much better about that than 2 or 3 guys saying, no, we ought to go this way, and then the president of BOPS comes in and says, no, we're going to go this way. Like it tough. And that would bother me.
DJ PK, it's 97. When it's happened in Jazz history, it hasn't worked out that well, right? DJ PK, it's 97.5, The Zone.
Hey, bro.
You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
This show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
She bangs! She bangs!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Sweet darlings, nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. And it's sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Did you know, as we talk about Austin Ainge?
The story of the morning. Shams dropping it 45 minutes ago. Utah Jazz are eyeing Boston Celtics assistant GM Austin Ainge as the franchise's president of basketball operations.
The Jazz have already put out
now
the
Jazz
release.
put out the release.
Austin grew up in the East Valley in the Phoenix area, played at Highland High School. When he was there, the Highland Hawks, I think they are, You know who the quarterback was?
No.
Guess.
I can guarantee you
Guess.
that a high school quarterback in the Phoenix area 20 years ago, one random high school, I don't know.
Guess.
Matt Harpering. No, he didn't grow up in Arizona, but,
He played in the NFL
football.
for many years.
Oh, really?
Yes. Many years. And I think he does commentary now on some network.
Troy Aikman. Not that age. I know, Troy Aikman's too old. Rick Neuheisel. No, again, too old.
An Ivy League grad.
Oh, with the big beard, played with 8 teams, Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'd have been here a while if you hadn't given me the Ivy League clue. Ryan Fitzpatrick was not at the forefront of my brain.
Austin's 43, and Ryan Fitzpatrick's 42.
Oh, really? So there's a decent chance they at least know of each other. I mean, a year apart playing different sports. They may not have been hanging out together, but probably knew who each other were.
Yeah. And now here he is. Ryan went to an Ivy League school, and Austin went to the Ivy League school of the Mountain West.
The Ivy League of the Mountain West. I don't think I've heard that before.
Austin has trained for this for many, many years. Of that, I'm assured. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. He's come to town a few times, talked to him. I know he's been in town. He's kept some relationships. I played golf with David Nixon. This is several years back, and he was talking about when Austin comes to town, they play.
Does David Nixon hit the ball about 300 yards off the tee?
No, 360.
Okay. I think he's kind of athletic, has some size. Can't play the sport that he loved for so many years anymore. It's not a sport you can play later in life. Has to put all that competitive desire somewhere.
Yes.
I bet he puts it into a driver. And I bet he launches that thing.
He can pound it.
I bet.
Yeah,
not surprised.
No question about that. So when we played over at Bonneville, and on 18, he drove into the junk, which is way out there.
On 18 at Bonneville, downhill. Need a 3-wood.
Yeah, he just pounded it. And I hit my little weak thing to the right, and he says, "Oh, that's a good angle to come in with. Thank you for finding a compliment somewhere in there."
Course management and distance off the tee.
Yeah.
Two different guys playing two different games.
Yeah. So Austin, and he's a glib guy. He can he can handle himself. There was a time.
That you just undersold that.
Yeah.
You undersold that. He's
good. He's good with that.
Yeah, he can talk all day long.
When he was a senior, I think it was, Keeney Young was the MVP of the Mountain West. And so they announced that before the conference tournament. And I'm already in Vegas. And the team must have traveled that day and had a practice later in the day. And I'm already there. So the Tribune ran a big thing. And it was a cool design with copy in and around the player. And Keeney Young had a phenomenal senior season and ends up being MVP. And unfortunately, and I believe BYU only had 2 African Americans, and the newspaper had the wrong person. And so
I remember this.
Ainge comes out.
And I remember this.
And I hadn't seen it, but he had already seen it. Because you couldn't go on the internet at that point. And he comes right up to me. You had a 50% chance of getting it right, and you got it wrong. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he told me. It was embarrassing, obviously. They got the wrong black guy, essentially.
And he comes right to you.
Oh, yeah.
50% chance you had.
And he's riding me. And I had nothing to do with it, but I was the representative, so he was going to let me have it. I wrote the story on Keeney Young being the MVP, so you had that going on here. So he's very media savvy, which I think is important these days. You have to present a message, and it has to be presented in a manner that reflects well on your entire franchise and your organization, and I think he'll do that. Now,
and the message when you talk to the public is important because obviously they're buying the tickets and they're buying the premium seats, they're buying the luxury suites, they're buying the signage and spending all this money. But don't kid yourself. That message that goes out to the public filters right back through the organization. And these organizations are bigger than ever, and everybody hears it.
Yeah, and they're going to have to, I would like for them to make themselves more available. His father didn't do it that much, and maybe Austin will do it more. I was listening this morning, driving in on NBA radio, that they were talking about Leon Rose, who I guess is the manager of the Knicks.
The team president.
Decided he didn't make any comments. And they had Stephen A. Smith there as his guest on the guest of the show, and he's talking about that's a disgrace. It's not anything for the media. It's you owe it to your fans to speak. And I've been saying this for a while. I wish they could open up a little bit more.
And talk more than twice a year.
In the intentions of where they think they're going with this rebuild. And you can't spill your guts. That's not wise. You can't play your hand too much.
But Kevin O'Connor didn't spill his guts, and Scott Layden didn't spill his guts. But they talked to what the fans wanted to know and what they wanted to hear.
Kevin O'Connor made himself available a lot.
They both had a routine where they were available, and if you needed something, wanted something, on background or for the record, you knew when and where to get them. They were going to be accessible.
I remember one year he came when we were over at 1320. He came on. You were gone because he asked, "Where's DJ?" It was the morning after the draft.
Oh, that draft. I missed one draft, and it was a big deal.
Oh, was it? I didn't even remember it was that one.
Well, I'll bet it was because I didn't miss many drafts.
Okay, yeah, you weren't there. Because he said, he said, "Where's DJ?" He said this on the air, and I said, "Oh, they're having OTAs in San Diego, and he's standing by the chain link fence where the players come, waiting for autographs." And Kevin busted up because he knew you were a Charger guy, and he came on the morning after. And it doesn't matter for us. I mean, clearly it didn't matter for us. I mean, really nothing matters for us now. I mean, we've been doing this for so long. Mm-hmm. I don't need you to come on, but the fans want to hear it. And so it's all about the fans.
Kevin was really good about coming on in the bad times when people need to hear the message. And when they were up 2 on the Mavericks and lost 3 in a row, and it really signified the end of Stockton and Malone, they never won a playoff series again. And it signified the start of, the rise of the Mavs and Dirk Nowitzki. He was on the next morning. I know you're mad. We are. I know you're frustrated. We are. You may be super angry with us. I get that.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, he just laid it out there. But he made sure he came on the next morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good. And we'll see what type of leeway Austin Ainge has to be able to do that.
We got a hardcore listener here who I have to assume has to be a hardcore Jazz fan, because why would you be a hardcore listener to us if you didn't have some level of care with the Jazz? At CJ Real Hoops 1, and he'll tweet at us, and he's not one of the crazy ones. And he says, "I'm just confused with this news on who's really going to be calling the shots between Ainge Sr., Ainge Jr., and Zanuck.
Yeah.
If they all stay long-term, CJ, I get your confusion. But if one of them were to leave fairly quickly, there wouldn't really be any confusion. It would look like a normal transition. Now, nothing's been announced, but it doesn't take a lot to connect the dots here."
And that's something I get you're going with. His father is 66 years old. Not that that's over the hill if you don't want it to be. Pat Riley's still going strong. I think he's approaching 80. And he spoke at length the day after the season when the Heat just got thoroughly embarrassed in that final game. I mean, they were blown off the court in their home arena. And so he's out there speaking. But I do think that's one of the things that they need to answer is what is the hierarchy of the organizational structure? You can have more than one, but you have to have some type of chart where who's the point guy? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? At the minimum, I think that they owe that to the fans. They don't owe jack to me. Make that abundantly clear. It's about the fans. I mean, they don't get any of my money. They get my time, for sure. In fact, I make money off of them. They
make a little money off you. You're one of the many viewers out there. Local TV's still worth something.
Yeah.
A fraction of what it used to be.
Right. But
you're also one of the viewers for the national TV package, one of millions.
Sure. And I was before, and I will be after. But they get the hardcore that want to know. They want to know, how's this going to work? What are you thinking here? And at the minimum, they can do that without exposing themselves. Oh, we really like Edgecombe, and we're going to do everything possible to move up to get him. I mean, they're going to say that. Nor do anybody expects them to say that. And they shouldn't say that, and they won't say that. But there's things that they can reveal that I don't think will impact the franchise negatively. I think it actually will be more of an exploratory conversation. This is what we're going to do. And to an extent, I would very much still like his father to be involved. His father's a winner.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that Ryan has to know about bringing in Austin, is that if Danny does step away, how far is he going to step away? Still watch games, still talk hoops with Austin.
Oh, yeah. He's addicted to that.
Yeah.
And I would want him to do that. Like one time I bought a house, and the realtor that we got was young, and it was going to be his first sale.
I know this.
And we were concerned, but I said to my wife, no, his mother owns the company. We're getting her.
She's not going to let him fail.
Right, she's not going to let him fail. No.
She doesn't need us running around saying, this new guy is a clown, don't hire him.
And this was over 10 years ago, and everything went great.
Yeah.
And I've used him multiple times since as he's developed, and he's on his own. He can stand on his own now. But in the beginning, I was getting the expertise of his mother, who had had 30 years in the business. I want his father to be involved because he's got 30, 40 years in the business.
That's the two-edged sword about nepotism. And we all know the downside to it, that somebody who isn't qualified gets it. But if you get somebody who has a real knack for it, and they're learning from somebody who has a real knack for it, well, then you get Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
Right? That's the best case scenario. You've got a knack for it, and you're very close to someone who's also very good at it, and you pick up a lot of stuff. Now, if you don't, it can go run awry because you can't get rid of the person, and then the person just makes a huge mess of it. But if it's somebody who's good and their kid is good, sometimes that's awesome.
That's Austin.
Thank you. Okay. You can stop now.
And I like they did it now because he's got basically a whole month to get on board with what the line of thinking is going forward here. There's enough time that he's fully immersed. And they've known about this for a little bit, so he's probably already been immersed. They just announced it this morning.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up at the 9 o'clock hour, our spring football tour continues. Bill Seals covering Iowa State. Top of the hour. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Tim Reynolds joining us on the program. He writes for the AP.
It's 11 conference champions in the last 7 years, too. 11 out of the 14 have been different. So not only has there been a change in who wins it, there's also a change in the teams that get there. I mean, we've had a new CBA and rule changes within it. The aprons, they changed a lot of things for a lot of teams. It's really tough for teams to get good now from the middle. You've either got to bottom out or you've got to get super lucky or you're stuck in the middle. I think it's great that legitimately 20 of the 30 teams can honestly say we have a chance. The NFL doesn't have that. Major League Baseball doesn't have that. It's great for the league because the league didn't have this for a while. Now we just have new things to complain about. We complained about how boring it was when it was Cleveland Golden State every year. Now we just complain about other stuff.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. And now, your Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer's strong play of the weekend.
It's swung on, crushed, right field. It's on its way. Goodbye. Cal Raleigh does it again. He is unbelievable. The home run leader in baseball strikes again. Cal Raleigh going deep.
Move over, Shohei. The judge? The judge is second. Cal Raleigh. 23 home runs for your guy, Yock. How pumped are you for Cal?
Yeah, Big Dumper's the man. That's the best nickname in baseball, by the way.
Big Dumper.
Go see Cal.
Get a home run.
Not Cal Worthington.
That was old school right
If
there.
you want a better deal, go see Cal.
Yeah. If you want a better deal, go see Cal. If you want a better deal, then you... All right, we'll stop.
I got good news. Oh, have you finished your thing there?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, I have not. You're right. Correct. I have not. Officially, I have not. That is the Chevy Strong play of the day. Know it today after 3 o'clock, and JJ and Alex will call for it, and you can win fabulous prizes.
Keith Smith, who is a contributor to Spot Rack and Front Office Show in the NBA, says he's really happy for Austin to get the chance to run a team. Curious to see who has final say in Utah. That's great. I agree. But the thing that catches my eye says this is tough for the Celtics because Ainge was a huge part of the team, consistently getting rotation guys late in the draft, as well as bringing in European players in rotation spots. And you need that. We talked about OKC having a bench full of role guys who all contribute and do different things. We talked to Caruso the other night there, man, just coming in and providing all sorts of defensive energy, getting the team all fired up for that. And so feed off of that. You can feed off your defense and support the stars to let them do what they do.
You got to find something for nothing.
Yeah.
You can't pay everybody. So whether it's an undrafted guy like Lou Dort, your Arizona State Sun Devil in Oklahoma City, Caruso was undrafted. Whether it's finding the Joe Ingles type, somebody in Europe is overlooked but has the skill set and you can develop them when they get here, one way or another. Second rounders, late first rounders, you got to make it happen.
Yeah. So, he can get into it via his last name that a lot of us can't be in that situation. That's the way of the world. But it can speak to his training to be able to have some significant experience before you're getting this role. He'll be, what do we say, he'll be 44 years old in September by the start of the season. So he's not a spring chicken here. He's not moving up in his 20s. He paid his dues. He got his foot in the door. Good for him. But he paid his dues to be able to be where he's at. And I'm excited for this move to see what it means for him to be able to try to make this team better.
DJ PK, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Bill Seals covering the Iowa State Cyclones for Rivals Cyclone Report. We'll have more on Austin Ainge joining the Jazz later in the show. Stay with us.